Despite having beaten the game many times over the years, I've never once chosen Cleric as my starting class. It just never stood out to me. If I wanted a strength weapon, why wouldn't I choose the Bandit? If I wanted a caster, why not the Pyromancer? Not even the idea of a healing miracle stoked my fancy because, in my eyes, the Estus could always do that job for me. Well, that's what's inspired this video's challenge. I decided to find out how hard Dark Souls is using only the Cleric starting gear. As usual, the rules are simple. I can only utilize the weapons and armor that the Cleric leaves the Asylum with. I can upgrade said weapon when I defeat bosses, one boss equaling one level. The only rings allowed are the Orange Charred Ring and the Crest of Artorias because of their necessity to beat the game, and I won't be using temporary buffs or summons because I'm a Cleric and my faith supports me. And as a bit of fun for this run, I've decided on one more little rule just to make the challenge a tad harder. Since the Cleric is the only class that starts with the healing miracle, and since I personally believe that the Estus Flask is vastly overpowered in Dark Souls 1, I've decided for this run to ditch the Estus Flask entirely. Yes, this will be a no Estus run. Why? Because I'm pretty stupid. After naming my character and confirming my class, I choose to take the Goddess's Blessing instead of my usual Thief's Key. Why? Because I'm a Lady of God and no self-respecting faithful would do such a vile thing as cheat. I wake up in my cell at the behest of a man throwing bodies at me, and after escaping, praise the gods for releasing me before running into my first roadblock. I escape the Asylum Demon's grasp and manage to secure myself the East-West shield and my trusty mace. This allows me to fight back against the many unholy abominations that roam the Asylum, giving them the peace they sorely crave. After narrowly avoiding it, I come across the poor soul who aided me, crippled and on the verge of death. He gives me a key to leave the Asylum, as well as Estus? A soup of some sort. Probably unholy, we'll get rid of that. I collect the canvas talisman, and after dealing with the terrible trio outside the fog gate, I say a prayer and pass through into the battle beyond. Styling is not the way of the Cleric, it seems, as my roll into the heavy attack doesn't actually happen. No bother, as the mace is already a beast, wiping out a third of the Asylum Demon's health bar with just 3 two-handed R1 attacks. I do take a hit or two as my aggression gets the best of me, but I manage to separate myself and get a cast of heal off. Kind of. Then it's a simple roll around the tubby monstrosity and a few more swings to send it back to the nightmare that birthed it. After arriving at Firelink Shrine, I make the acquaintance of this handsome fella, who for whatever reason seems to not like me, and smash my way through the undead burg and the many hollows that populate it. I make it to the Taurus Demon effortlessly, and when it comes to fighting the demon itself, I follow the usual strat of jumping from the tower and crashing down on its head. I take a hit right after, and wait until the Taurus Demon does an attack with a long enough recovery that I can get a cast of heal off. Thankfully, the Taurus has a couple of these, and with enough distance between myself and the demon, I have more than enough time to cast it. Otherwise, the demon is a very easy fight. 3 two-handed R1s will stun lock, and despite the damage not being incredible, it's more than enough to beat the demon into submission. I come across quite the charming fellow, and we have a respectful discussion on religion in the current day political systems of Lordran before making my way across the bridge and through the parish gate. The Baronique Knight and I play a game of who can smash the other harder. Shockingly, the East-West shield was able to protect me from the Knight's wide swings pretty soundly, which I didn't expect from a shield that has mediocre stats like it does. The overhand smash though? Not so much. But I eventually get the better of him, and use the guaranteed Titanite shardy drops to boost my mace to +1. Before taking on the gargoyles, I decide that maybe the butterfly would be a better first fight, as I just assumed that it would be an easier fight at this point. My damage is only okay, and with my personal inability to actually avoid the butterfly's magical spears, yes, it's a skill issue, you don't have to tell me, I find myself getting hit easily. I try to cast heal, but my brain shuts off for a second, and it gets me killed. So maybe the butterfly wasn't the right idea. So, gargoyles it is. The run up to the tower is pretty uneventful, but I come across this poor soul locked away in a cell. I have no key, and I completely forget how I get it, so he's just gonna have to sit tight. The battle with the gargoyles is as straightforward as it gets. I double up on the mace, as my damage up to this point has been only okay, and I need every bit I can muster. And throwing caution to the wind, I smash at it like a contractor at a tenement wall. The first gargoyle gets stun-locked easily, allowing me to stack damage like nobody's business, and despite overconfidence burning me literally, I finish it off before I'm in any real danger. The second is just textbook after that. I roll behind as it breathes its flames at me and shatter its stone body with a barrage of two-handed R1 attacks, stunning it too, finishing it off without the need of any healing at all, getting myself the victory and the first bell. Back at Andre, I boost the mace to +2, and then for some reason decide to take on the Titanite Demon at the base of Andre's stairs. Now, this goes to show how dumb I am, because I always thought that the Titanite Demon here dropped a Titanite chunk, not Demon Titanite. I have zero reason why I thought that. Wishful thinking, I suppose? I can't even use Demon Titanite, but, I mean, 2,000 souls is 2,000 souls, I guess. Anyways, it was back to the butterfly. I had hoped that the increase to damage my mace offered would grant me some leeway, and while there was an increase, it was not significant. Using the little magic defense the East-West shield offered to tank the attacks I had no confidence in avoiding, allowed me to minimize damage as much as humanly possible. And I wouldn't heal until after the butterfly had landed, taken its beating, and then began to charge up its big magical explosion. This gave me more than enough time to cast my miracle. It lengthened the fight a little, but playing it safe paid off, with the near 7-minute fight coming to an end in my favor. I cruise back across the Dragon's Bridge, down into the lower Undead Burg, delivering swift justice to the hounds, assassins, and hollows that sought my demise, and upon returning to Filing Shrine, secure myself 5 more casts of heal from Petrus. Also, Oh. Well, it seems this fella didn't need my help to escape at all. Good for him. No need to be that rude about it, though. Some early hits in the Capra Demon fight put me on edge, but the gods were on my side, lining up the dogs on the ledge for a big one-handed R2 that silenced both of them quickly. This allowed me to get a heal off while the Capra Demon fumbled down below. A couple more jumping attacks onto the demon, and a few careless swings, and I finished it off without a hitch. I open the depths, pick myself up the large ember from the butcher's kitchen, and begin the trek, killing the channel and his ratty pals to give myself the edge in the gaping dragon fight. Again, the damage against the dragon was not great, and the low stamina level I had at this point only allowed me to get 2, maybe 3 hits in before I needed to recover. Thankfully, the gaping dragon is one of the easiest fights in the game to avoid, being that it's a big lumbering goofball. Booping its snoot speeds the fight up a little bit due to its weak spot, and despite getting hit several times due to my own carelessness, the dragon grants you a lot of time to heal. It's a pretty run-of-the-mill fight that I probably wouldn't have put in the video if it weren't for the fact that I needed to. Without the Master Key, I unfortunately needed to take the long way down to Quog. So, it was down into the vile pit that is Blighttown. It had been so long since I had taken that path that I completely forgot where to go, so I ended up spending over an hour trying to remember which path would safely get me to the bottom, and which would get me killed. No biggie, but it sucked. A lot. Finally, after more deaths in this one small area than within the entire run so far up to this point, twice over, I found myself the second bonfire and headed through to make Quog repent from her witchy ways. The fight opened with me getting hit hard twice, wiping out most of my health. Thankfully, Quog's arena is so large that it's no hassle to make some space between her and myself to get off a cast of heal. Circling around and thumping her with my mace is about as creative as I plan to get with this fight, but the mace was not really showing up for me. Doing 66 damage on the low end while two-handing is not ideal, considering Quog herself has over 3000 HP. And still only being able to get off 2 or 3 hits if I'm lucky means a long fight is in store. I also needed to watch myself around the stray lava pools since they're my bane in this fight, and I didn't like risking having to heal just in case. But thankfully my patience pays off, chipping away at her health, and the witch was cast back into the hells where she belongs. I ring the second bell, then commit an act of mercy when I send the ceaseless discharge into the endless sleep, and then take the short way back up to the New Londo ruins. and realizing that I need a key to open the door, which I completely forgot to get. And in what's probably the most embarrassing bit of this entire run, I didn't go back into Blighttown to get said key. Instead, I took the long way around through Darkroot Basin. Because that's just who I am. I have to make things hard on myself. I upgrade my mace once again, getting it to +7, as well as boosting my shield up a few levels as well, then rush through Sen's funhouse. I kill the giant to secure myself a chunk, and then head into my fight with the Iron Golem. Even at +7, the mace is only doing okay damage. Thankfully though, the mace shatters the Iron Golem's armor, stun locking in less than a minute and sending it over the edge without any real effort on my part. I whomp the KKK, craftily traverse the rafters and the archers stationed about it, and get my mace to +9 at the giant blacksmith. The biggest issue with the Ornstein and Smo fight showed itself immediately. The mace swings so slow that when I would dodge Ornstein's spear and immediately go for a counterattack, the Dragon Slayer would have more than enough time to leap away from me. This, coupled with the fact that the mace has a rather long recovery when you miss a hit, meant I would be in striking range twice as often as I should be, either from Ornstein himself or Smo lumbering up like the chunky fella that he is and crushing me like a taco shell. So, I began a marathon. Multiple attempts of me sprinting from one side of the arena to the other, waiting for the briefest of openings to damage Ornstein while trying my damnedest to avoid getting cracked open by Smo. Midway through my fourth attempt, a wild strike at Smo taught me that the Executioner took almost double the damage of his cohort. So I thought, maybe I'll switch it up. I managed to get to the second phase that try, but Ornstein is, for lack of a better word, a motherfucker. And despite a pretty good attempt, I still died. After several more attempts, I just decided to go for broke, swinging like Babe Ruth whenever I saw the briefest of openings. And before I knew it, Ornstein had collapsed under my barrage. Smo in the second phase proved to be an absolute pushover though, getting stun-locked multiple times, and despite myself getting hit hard due to my aggression, Smo moved so damn slow that I had more than enough time to heal myself. He's a scrub. Usually, I would kill off the illusion and send Anne or Londo into darkness, but I'm a cleric, boys and girls, and cheating is not suitable behavior for one such as me. So, for now, it's back to Firelink where... Wait, what the fuck? Where'd the fire go? What's this? Dead? Perhaps the Firekeeper has passed into the great beyond. So a prayer must be said. From here, I catch the crow back to the asylum, where it's time to slap some stray demon cheeks. Despite my usually having a lot of trouble with the stray's fart gas, this fight actually turned in my favor straight away. Maybe I'm finally getting good. Damage is solid, doing a clean 180 with a two-handed R1 and around 270-ish with an R2. I quickly fall into the pattern of hitting twice and running away, partially because of my stamina consumption and partially because I don't want to get farted on. This works out for me. It's basically a perfect strategy, always giving me enough time to escape the AoE attacks. It's not a breeze of a fight, but I was thankfully never in any real danger, and the stray demon went back to hell on my very first attempt. I grab the peculiar doll and head back, placing the Lord's vessel, and we're halfway done. Back in Anne Londo, I found myself admiring a beautiful painting. What can I say? It just sucked me in. Priscilla herself turned out to be more of a nuisance than I thought. I almost always get hit by her, and with the fact that she can do insane bleed damage, I found myself on the verge of death several times. But even worse than that is the fact that she would sneak up on me when I would try and cast heal, cutting me up and making me need to run off again and cast again. She's a real bitch sometimes. This really lengthened the fight, so much so that even after I beat her out of her invisibility spell, she was able to cast it again. But I'm me, I'm awesome, and eventually I killed the crossbreed and escaped Ariamis. I made my way up to the archives, killing both the armored hogs and planning on getting the pendant. Then, I remembered that you can't get the pendant without speaking to Dusk, so I had to trek back down to Darkroot Basin. While I'm there, I get the Crest of Artorias and fight Sif, who proved to be nothing special. The only issue again is the timing it takes to heal, but my mace is really starting to stand out, dealing out several hundred points of damage a combo. I get hit a couple of times but avoid healing, choosing to stay aggressive instead. This pays off, and poor Sif is put to rest. I slay the Hydra, ask Dusk to donate to the church, and then it's back to the archives. This time, I got the pendant, and I asked Seath if he's heard about the Word of God. He clearly is not one for God because boy did he curse me out. So, I headed back to filing, securing a purging stone from the sewer lady, and then headed back to the archives and by extension the crystal caves to slay myself a dragon. The silly little clamshell snuck in behind me, but Seath is not a fan of seafood. Otherwise, I just got tunnel vision and went straight for his weak spot. The damage here is excellent, doing upwards of 1,000 damage if I can get off about 4 strikes. I take a big hit from his crystal breath, but Seath has a blind spot behind him that I can abuse to get a heal off. Otherwise, it's just a matter of time before the betrayer breaks and I secure my first Lord Soul. Back into it, I thought it was about time to crank my mace some more. So, it was into New Londo, where I lowered the water and farmed myself some Titanite chunks. I obviously nabbed the very large ember as well, because how the hell am I going to upgrade without it? I boost both the mace and shield to plus 11, and then decide to take a swing, pun intended, at the DLC. So, it was into Manus' cosmic butthole. Into the Sanctuary Guardian. The East-West shield proved to be very useful here, deflecting so much of the damage from the Guardian's lightning balls that what did come through was basically negligible. On the opposite side though, if I got hit by the lightning without it up, I'm more or less screwed. The Guardian is one of the most aggressive bosses in the game for me, and there's almost zero time to heal myself should it come to that. When I get hits off on the Guardian though, it stuns very easily, and the damage output is excellent. But my stamina is just not enough to keep the beast in a stun loop. I managed to get below a third of its health several times, but I choke right at the end, dying again and again and again. After 10 attempts, I retreat and go after other prey. Said prey turns out to be the Fire Sage, who despite having several irritating attacks, proves to be not that bad. I get hit, but I have more than enough time to get my distance and heal when the Sage casts one of its AoE attacks. Damage is also getting really good now, dealing a clean 222 with a two-handed R1, and between 350 and 500 with an R2 depending on whether or not I get a counter hit. For lack of a better term, he ain't shit, and he goes down on my first attempt. Then came the Centipede Demon. My first attempt fails because the Centipede catches up to me before I can cast Heal, and smashes me right into the lava. So, then and there, I set my mind on defeating it on the embankment right beyond the fog door. No screwing around. This isn't the hardest thing in the world, but it does offer less room for movement than the other area around the corner. On top of that, the Centipede seems to love doing his go-go gadget bug arm at you when you're on this spot, as shown here, in which he did it more than a dozen times in a row, only stopping when I nursed the edge of the lava, trying to bait it in. When the Centipede does eventually come onto the bank with you, the fight is pretty run-of-the-mill, but you need to watch out for the lava pools that spawn because the bank is so small that they'll cut your space in half. Damage is great, breaking 800 with each two-handed combo, and once I get into my groove, the Centipede Demon is cast right back into the pit that birthed it. On making it to the bed of chaos, I crush the first bulb and then get slapped like a bug twice in a row before I can even get my bearings. Second time around, I crush the second bulb and get caught in an inferno when trying to heal. Third time, thankfully, I managed to navigate the pillars of fire as deft as a cat and smash the vile little firebug to secure my second Lord Soul. Trekking down into the catacombs, I wander through the endless tombs, slaying the endless hordes of undead to find myself the seance ring, which the skeletons were totally fine with me taking. Yeah. Then, before heading back up to the surface, I delivered some divine justice to the vile necromancer Pinwheel, who proved no match for me in my faith. Mask of the Mother, by the way. Using the seance ring, I approached the Lord's tomb, which the little twink Darksun Gwendolyn took offense to. This was barely a fight. Everything can be avoided without hassle, and my mace does so much damage now that it only took a couple of rotations. I had just enough Titanite chunks to get my mace to plus 12, which honestly I thought might do me for the rest of the game. Then said a prayer and went to end the Guardian Demon. As you would expect, my luck is non-existent and I get poisoned immediately. This ain't good, requiring me to heal twice or maybe 3 times as often. I died. Another attempt ended in failure, but on my 3rd try, God was on my side. When the Guardian sprayed water at me, I managed to get around to its side and hit it with 2 R2s, clocking up over 800 damage. 2 quick hits on return almost kill me, but I pushed through, smashing it 3 more times, getting me the victory on my 13th overall attempt. I tried to take in the sights, but the game is dead set on me killing Artorias. 250 damage for a 2-handed R1 is really good, especially when you take into account the fact that my mace isn't even fully upgraded yet. My first attempt goes okay, but I get run through by Artorias' greatsword. I do have plenty of time to heal while Artorias overcharges himself though, but some needed aggression on my part gets me killed. Second attempt goes far better for me. I take a few risks, getting R2s instead of R1s for better damage, but getting aggressive when Artorias tries to boost instead of healing gets me killed. Third time, I get cut up before I can really do anything. But the 4th, damn was I on it. I hit every dodge, I stunned Artorias whenever I got a chance, I whittled down the 4 Knight's health bar like it was nothing. 2 quick hits at the end almost finished me off, but I kept my confidence and I managed to kill the once great knight once and for all. I try to bring the word of God to those in the Orsal Township. They aren't receptive, but I do manage to secure the key to Hawkeye Go, who looses his arrow into Calamit's side to put the dragon down. I get some bad luck trying to slay the dragon, admittedly. His neck is just too damn long, I keep getting hit by it. But on my 3rd attempt, I have probably the best Calamite fight I have ever had. I avoid every flame breath, every calamity eye, and every single one of the dragon stomps. I do get whipped by its long ass neck, but thankfully there's several large openings for me to heal. I get hit once more by the golden flames right at the end of the fight, but by then there's little room for failure. Calamite goes down on my 3rd attempt, leaving only 4 bosses to go. Ullasil proves to be the nightmare I always knew it was, and I die several times trying to get to Manus. In fact, what does get me there surprisingly is the east-west shield, which stops me dying at just the right time to secure the bonfire at the door to the abyss. Manus himself is more of a nuisance simply because I think I have more time to heal than I actually do, and because of this, I die several times. Damage is pretty good, but my issues with Manus don't come from his health bar. After getting down the timing on my heals, the best of which I found to be when Manus throws his giant temper tantrum, I begin to slowly whittle down his health. But then comes the magic. I have the worst luck with the magic. I know it's just me, but it always feels like that if I'm not in the right spot before Manus starts his cast, then I'm screwed. I try to strafe more when this happens, hoping it would help, but this just leaves me open to more strikes from his staff. After a long run of deaths, I retreat for the 2nd time in the run. I farm more Dark Wraiths, thinking that maybe if I do more damage, then maybe I can wear Manus down quicker, and then lowering the chance Manus has to cast. Makes sense, right? So, I max out the mace, and with a new confidence, go after Manus once more. Unfortunately, this doesn't quite help. See, I'm still bad at the game, and any amount of damage isn't going to fix that. But the damage boost was pretty substantial. Over 300 per 200 R1. That ain't bad at all. A couple more attempts and I really start to get my groove. After 3 more attempts, I do the unthinkable and manage to back Manus into the corner of his arena, which limits his moveset. This proves to be the big kicker in the fight, and after 14 total attempts, I finally put an end to Manus and the horrors he inflicted on poor Ullasil. Before I headed to the Four Kings, it was back to Anor Londo, where a certain black eye quivered. Using it, I was transported to an alternate world where the god's eyes do not see, and where the rude golden bastard and his pathetic minions proved to be no match for myself and the several pounds of reinforced steel that I wield. No injustice shall go unpunished. Then, it was time for Neato. I discovered here that the mace has deceptively short range, and when I would circle around to Neato's side to get a hit in, it wouldn't always succeed. So I had to go closer to the undead one's front, which really isn't the best place to be in this fight. This poor positioning gets me stuck between Neato and a wall, and his miasma of filth kills me. I will say though, that the damage is excellent, as to be expected. 3 R1s net me over 1000 damage. But I can also get infected with toxicity, which will almost certainly kill me if it does happen. Finding a place to heal is much harder here than in the last several fights combined, because the skeletons never cease their shenanigans, the Gravelord's sword dance regularly pops up while in the middle of the animation, and there's very little space to maneuver without aggroing the bigger bony fellas. But on my 4th attempt, God himself was watching, and he wanted me to finish off this heresy. Narrowly avoiding hits that should have finished me, granted me the confidence I needed, and I wailed on Neato like he was my little brother until the bones cracked beneath my steel, securing the 3rd Lord Soul. With the 4 kings left before Gwyn, I approached this fight with pure aggression, not worrying to retreat if I got hit. In my mind, I thought that if I did get hit and die, well, I died. But if I managed to kill one of the 4 kings before the next spawns, I could heal in the downtime before they spawn. This was the right choice. I died once simply because a bad swing drained too much of my stamina and I couldn't get away, but the second time I died because I completely finished one of the kings and they didn't care. Third time though, great RNG meant the 4 kings' biggest threats did not come out often enough to put me in any real danger. I managed to kill each king before the next spawned, but surprisingly, the 5th king spawned anyways. I thought that only happened if you took too long. You learn something new every day, I guess. But with the 4 kings dead, that meant there was only Gwyn. I offered the Lord Souls, wandered into the kiln of the first flame, and entered Gwyn's fog door determined. My non-existent skill almost got me killed straight off, but a lucky parry granted me some space. Unfortunately, Gwyn doesn't like healing miracles because he is relentless. I did manage to get him down to about 1/6 of his health bar, but bad movement ended up killing me. That's when I told myself, no healing, no parrying, I'm fucking Gwyn up. Over 300 damage with a 2-handed R1 and almost 500 with an R2 was more than enough for me. On top of that, Gwyn gets stunned pretty easily with an R2. So, I'd bide my time until Gwyn would go for his grab, step out of his range, and then beat on Gwyn like De Niro in The Untouchables. On my victory attempt, I almost died at the last second, but it was not to be. Gwyn fell, and I beat Dark Souls as the Cleric. Without Estus. So, that was that. I know it was an unnecessary addition, but I can't help to think that if I allowed Estus, that this would have been one of the easiest class runs so far. Even easier than the Bandit. The mace is just outstanding, maybe too good for a starting weapon. It makes mincemeat of every enemy it comes across. And the East-West shield surprisingly showed up whenever I needed it to, taking hits that I never in a million years would have expected it to be able to do, turning otherwise heavy damage into little more than an afterthought. In fact, the only thing that gave me any trouble was the long healing times, but hey, I still did it, didn't I? I hope you like this. If you have any idea what class I should do next, and what a good caveat for it would be, comment and let me know. Till next time, bye bye.